Hey guys, and welcome back to the Making Spirituality Real podcast. Today we are continuing with our analysis of the Parashara Shastra. No surprise there. Last time we have covered the interesting rulerships of the lunar mentions, the nakshatras as per Vedic astrology. So, in general, this book doesn't just cover Vedic astrology, but also a lot of spiritual truths about the universe. Even if you're not into astrology, you will still find something. But last episode was very astrological because it was focused strictly on the lunar mentions or on the truth of astrology in general. So I think it was more Vedic specific. Nevertheless, the information was definitely, worthwhile, and I'm happy that I covered it. So, fun fact, in not the last episode, but the next to last episode, I kind of was dismissive of the Vedic naming chapter that I skipped. One of the reasons being is that I don't speak, the Hindu languages. But you know what, actually, I don't feel like I have the competence to do a full episode on that, but what I did was that they have like a list of the Hindu alphabet, which is apparently divided into several categories like vowels, semi-vowels, sibilants, aspirate, guttural, palatal, cerebrals, dentals, and labials. It's different than any language I've ever learned so far, because I've only learned European languages. Like, I speak so many languages, but not this kind of Asian languages is new to me. And apparently certain categories of sounds are ruled by different planets, and the first letter of your first name given to you by your parents at birth is the one that's going to determine your vibration. And I mentioned it in the previous episode that if the parents choose a first letter of the first name of a child ruling a planet that's like struggling or debilitated, then the child is going to struggle in life, which kind of sucks. My luck is that my first letter of my first birth name is ruled by the moon, and my moon's in Cancer, so and in the 9th house. So actually, I would say that I'm pretty lucky as far as this goes. My parents kind of, scored with me. They named me after one of my more auspicious, Cancer Pushya moon planets, because moon rules Cancer. So if there's, and also it doesn't really have that many affliction. Like, it has a Mars conjunction, but it's not the end of the world. So it pretty much has good aspects. So thank you, parents, despite not being in having good intuition. But I kind of just wanted to, touch on that because definitely I think it's very interesting. For instance, the theory is such that if your name starts with any vowel, as in A, E, I, O, the Hindus have 12 vowels. See, this is why I don't touch on this, because they would have to go into linguistics here. Their vowels are different than ours in the Western world. Basically, any first name starting from a vowel is going to make you ruled by the sun. So if your name is, Erin, then automatically you're going to be ruled by the sun. Or if your name is Isabel, These are all solar names. And there's a whole list of rules, and the problem is that some of the sounds, in the Hindu language, they are differently spelled and differently pronounced than the ones in our Western languages. So let's say that, the first letter of my first legal name is pronounced, in the online you're gonna hear it as J, but in my native language it's pronounced as Y, as in Y, basically. And in Hindu, it's kind of how it works, that it's kind of like a Y, but it's read like a Y. And I had to look at the pronunciation, not the, the writing, the lettering, to be able to associate it correctly. And for instance, it's very funny how certain names seem to have certain connotations. For example, from what I remember, the letter M is associated with Saturn by principle. So if your name is Mike, I don't know, Maria, Mario, whatever starts with an M. What else starts with an M? Michael, anything like that, then you're going to be primarily ruled by Saturn, which if Saturn is in good condition, it's a good thing for your career or whatever. But if Saturn sucks, then your life is going to suck too. So yeah, basically it was kind of interesting to study these letters and see that it has a very good real-life application. Fun fact, if you actually read my first name as in through my online alias that I use, which is Jade, because some people think that Jagoda is too outlandish, that actually moves my vibration from Moon to Venus, where the Venus is conjunct Rahu, which is known for astrology, and it's in Nakshatra of Ketu, known for spirituality. So in a way, it makes sense how me using Jade for my international spiritual practice activates my Venus Rahu conjunction, such a spiritual lunar mention, and how the whole making spirituality the real thing starting with an M also gives you Saturn rulership, which is excellent, for that being a name linked to, I guess, what you would call my business or, my life calling. And my Saturn is exalted in Aquarius, so that's, pretty interesting. The rules, quite frankly, are very simple, that you're just going to have certain letters be associated with certain planets, and that's the end of it. The thing is that, studying this alphabet right now, even with the Google search, is like low-key impossible to really fully convert it without having a specific name, because different names have different origins. So let's say that you're Mexican American or you're a Canadian American like me, you were born in Quebec, so your name can have French connotations. There are different letters, different vowels, different sounds that have different meanings. For example, let's say in English, you have those vowels E and I. These vowels in some other languages, they are pronounced as E. And E is a sound that the English language does not have. You have A, E, and I. You don't have E. But in European languages, they do have E, or they have E, or U. And these are sounds that are just unique to certain, languages. And the Hindi alphabet is full of them. So you really have to analyze your name and pick the sound that's just the closest to it, basically. The closest to what your name is as the first letter for this to work. There's a website, I'm going to try to remember to link it in the comments, and there's like a Hindu man pronouncing all the sounds while you go along with the text, so that you can hear him and listen to what is the closest to what your name sounds like. There are some things that I can tell you that seem pretty universal with the vowels. Like, for example, in Hindu, there are like 3 types of A. There's A, there's A, and something like Ao that I can't even pronounce, because I'm very new at that. If I trained, I could do it, but... or there are several types of I also. Oh, excuse me, there are actually 4 types of A, not just 3. Or there's something that looks like R, and R is a vowel in Hindu, which is, a consonant in English. So that's why I said that you have to... Okay, I guess if your name starts with an R, it counts as a vowel, so you're still ruled by the sun. So if your name is Robert, or Richard, or Roberta, or, I don't know, Renata, or is a name I'm thinking of. It's a European name, actually. Or, I don't know, Rizoli, Rizolianel, what is this, the 90s, the 80s? But basically R is which can be pronounced like R. Actually, it's like a, like kind of like in some dialects, like in Spanish, when you say something like the quiero, it's not R, it's R. And, I can do that again because I was raised in Europe, so in my native language, we also use R instead of R. And not only that, they have 2 kinds of R, and I'm not even sure what the difference is between them because I'm new to Hindu. So again, if your name starts with an... Oh, there's also an L. Well, there you go. See, if your name is Louisa, Liam, or anything that starts with an L, then, this is also a vowel. That's why I'm saying that this language has its own rules, Next to the vowels that are familiar to us, like A, I, E, O, U, we also have R and L as a vowel. So all of these are ruled by the sun. And then the other confusing thing is that some of these vowels kind of descend into semi-vowels, so depending on your pronunciation, some of the first name is going to count as a vowel and some as a semi-vowel, and you have to listen to the Hindu man that I'm going to put in the link for you to distinguish it. Because some of the semi-vowels are things like Ya, or like it's the Yi, basically, which is like the first name for my name, Jagoda, which is the one I'm using. Or there's Ra, more like Ra, or there's Ra and La. There's R and L, which is different letters. Again, this is the whole Liam Roberta thing. And there's Va. So I guess if your name starts with a V, any kind of V, well, the thing is that in English it's pronounced in the English you would have like things like Winona, or William, right? Or Worcestershire, ha ha ha. No, but seriously, you would need someone that's called like with a V, like Valet or Valentino, or Valentina. Is someone called Valentina? I guess some people are, because all the kids nowadays have these weird names. So if your name is Valentina, then this is a semi-vowel, basically. So that's what I'm talking about, is that the R and L, the R's and L, some of them are vowels, some of them are semi-vowels. So if it's an R that's a vowel, you're ruled by the sun. But if it's an R that's a semi-vowel, you're ruled by the moon, because semi-vowels are ruled by the moon. What is also ruled by the moon is S. So I guess if your name is Stephanie, Sarah, Smith, Some people have a first name Smith, like Smith Jared in Sex and the City. But there are also all these other letters that are written with an S, but I'm guessing it's an accent that I can't pronounce. Again, it's Hindu, so it's like Sha, probably. So let's say your name is Sharon. So there you go, like, or is there like a male name with Sh? There's Sharon, there's Shirley, like anything like that. There you go. Technically, you write it with an S, see, but you pronounce it as an Sh. But this is technically still what is called a sibilant, so you're also ruled by the moon. So yeah, if your name is anything with a sh or an s, you're also ruled by your moon. You're also ruled by your moon if your name starts with a ha, which is going to be like Hannah or Herbert or Hugo, because ha is what is what's called an aspirate sound, and aspirate sounds are also ruled by the moon. The moon, by the way, is the planet. The moon and the sun are the planets that have the biggest number of letters, which means that it's very common to be ruled by those. I'm guessing that the luminaries are so strong that the parents want to do something that is more working. Man, this episode was supposed to be about something else, and it's turning out to be about this chapter that I skipped before, because I was nerding out about it yesterday after I posted the other episode, and it was just so interesting. Okay, so we covered the semi-vowels, we covered the sibilants, and we covered the aspirants. Okay, so we kind of covered the moon. Okay, moving on to Mars. Mars rules guttural sounds. Guttural sounds are something like K. See, the thing is that in Hindu there are two types of K. One K is just Ka, which is something like Carl. But see, there you go, here's the trap. Carl in English is written with a C, but it's pronounced with a K. So if your name is Carl and you write it with a C, it's still going to count as a K in Hindu, and so you're ruled by Mars. So anything like Carl, Caroline, Casper, Casper the ghost. Who else is called with a K? Klein, I don't know, Kelvin Klein. Oh yeah, there you go, Kelvin. Even Kelvin, you write it with a C, but it's still Kelvin. It starts with a K. And then there's the other K, which is more like Ka. And you know this Ka, you should be familiar to you if you eat in Asian restaurants, because there's very famous Thai soup. It's called Tom Kha Gai. And the Tom Kha Gai it has the second Ka, because you know all those Thai Hindu languages that are close to each other. So the Tom Kha soup, which you can find, is like a staple in most restaurants, like miso soup basically. Like miso ramen and Tom Kha are like some of those very basic soups in any Asian takeout menus, which you will know if you live in any like civilized first world big town, or if you're Asian yourself. And honestly, find me someone in the first world that has a name starting with Kha. You have to be of a native culture too. You have to be like an immigrant basically to have this as your first letter. And it's the same with J, which is pronounced as G. You have Ga and Gha. So naturally for Gha, you're also gonna have to be of a native culture, because no one in the Western world, unless they're an immigrant, is called Gha something, right? Fun fact, I used to go with an immigrant boy to primary school, and his last name started with a Ga, with a G-H, but he was from the Middle East, and it was the last name in the family, not the first name. But, I only know this sound because I knew a foreigner who was named this way. Otherwise, the Ga is going to be something like Gabriella. What else? But, Gabriella is more common. Something that starts with a gay. Oh, Gaylord, like you eat the parents. No, but seriously, this was a bad movie joke. Grace. Gracian, Grace, there you go. Anything with a gay. Pay attention, the pronunciation has to be G. It can't be something like George, because George is written with a G, but it's pronounced J instead of G. So it's going to be a different sound. See, this is the kind of stuff that you have to pay attention to. The pronunciations would matter. So anyone, like I said, Gabriella, Grace, all of these people, they are ruled by Mars. I think I gave you quite a lot of examples. If your first letter is ruled by palatals, which I'll tell you in a second what that is, you are ruled by Venus. And palatals are Cha and Sa. Cha is something like, probably like cherry, Charlie, there you go. Charlie is going to be ruled by Venus. Anything with a J, which is why, you know, when I use my pseudo Jade, I say I'm ruled by Venus because the J is here. So James, Julia, all of that is all going to be Venus. But here, again, we have George here because it's pronounced as J. Even though J and G are written differently, it's still J in pronunciation. So everyone who's pronounced by J, yeah, like I said, George, Julia, Gerard, you know, all those kinds of names, this is all Venus. There's also Ni. So let's say you're Spanish, you know, the Ni is very common. Like, you know, when you say niño, like a child, you know, some people are started with a Ni. Maybe if you name Nina, that would also count. Again, the Hindu has like many types of N, and yeah, I don't even know how to pronounce them. Honestly, I'm just using the sounds that I know are sure thing in a Western language. So all the J and Cha and Ch, like, you know, or maybe let's say also if you name Chuck, you know, so it's written with a CH, or you know, Charity. Some people are named Charity, right? That would also be a palatal, which is Venus. All those kinds of names. Now, another group is called the retroflexes, which is otherwise called cerebrals. The book and the Google have different names, so I'll just figure it out. Okay, well, this is ruled by Mercury. So the first one, again, just with like a K and a G, you have T, which is just a ta, and you have TH, which is tha. So again, and it's the same with the D. It's either da or dha. Oh, here we also have na, where as opposed to N, you're gonna have things like Natalie, Nora, you know, just a very flat N. Then it's gonna be ruled by Mercury. I don't know what else is with an N. Maybe for like a guy. Can't think of any name with an N-E for a guy. Nigel? Yeah, Nigel, for example. I don't know. I'm suddenly having the Devil Wears Prada flashbacks. So yeah, with a D, so let's say if your name is Dorothy Drake, as a rapper pseudo. I don't know what name, the male name is starting with a D, how that's kind of, I feel like that's been lacking in my life. Or T like Tanya, Troy, Teresa, you know, this kind of stuff. All of that is going to be ruled by Mercury. And by the way, just a good point to mention, if you at any point don't know which your name would be, drop me a comment and I'll tell you what that is according to, you know, to my analysis, me and Google, the dream team. Okay, so I was just about to move on to Jupiter and I realized that there is virtually no difference in Western language between the letters pronounced here between Jupiter and Mercury. Like technically they have a different category, but honestly, they're written the same way and they're pronounced very similarly. So, see, this is what I'm talking about, is that these languages, they're not the same. That's why the Hindus have so many more guttural sounds, because it makes a difference in your child's life, you know, to name them differently and have a different result. And here, there's like a little dot under everything. But honestly, I don't really see much of a difference. I'm going to listen to the Hindu guy again and see what I think. Okay, so after listening to those things, I hear virtually no difference between between the sounds for Mercury and the sounds for Jupiter. Like, all they have is this little dot at the bottom of them, and I listen to the native just speaking about them, and the difference is very subtle. And I'm sure that it makes a difference in Hindu naming, but in you know our Western alphabet is just less complex, or the complexity lies elsewhere. The language is more simple. So basically, the sounds that I just used, the last ones the examples that I used, they are good both for. I guess they activate both your Jupiter and Mercury in your chart, so you're lucky. It's 2 benefics. Go you. Which one was this? Go Tanya. Go Dorothy. You know, you're one of the lucky ones. Like, I just listened to a native pronounce them. For a Western name, there is no difference whatsoever. 0. Not kidding. So the last one we have left is Saturn, which is ruled by the labials. And here we have sounds like P, which is going to be things like Pierre. It's my French Quebecois speaking. Paula. It's my dad-in-law's girlfriend. Pauline. I don't know. Paul. Is there any other name that starts with a P besides Paul? Basically, anything with a P is Saturnian. There's also F. So anything that starts with an F, like Frank. Fernando. Anything with an F. Flora. Are there girls called Flora? I guess there are. Anything with the first F is going to be ruled by Saturn. Anything with a B, so Barbara, Bonnie, that's also going to be a B. What about a guy? Brad. Anything with a B is going to be Saturnian. So PFB and an M. So Maria, Mario, man, what are other names starting with an M? Well, if your name was with an M, you know who you are. That's why I said the name of my practice, Making Spirituality Real, is ruled by Saturn, because it starts with an M. So yeah, P, F, B, M are all ruled by Saturn. And yeah, if you have those letters as first letters of your first name, then Saturn is going to be the most prominent planet in your life. Anyway, this episode was intended to be about something completely else, but I got into explaining you guys those things, and now I'm recording, which I'm going to probably have to cut, but the raw uncut version is right now at 20 minutes. So I'm going to stop this right here before it becomes too long, and let's make this an episode about, how to name your Western baby using traditional Vedic techniques and using my, rookie attempts at deciphering the Hindu alphabet. But I think it should be pretty foreigner-friendly, because I have the foreigner's perspective into the Eastern language. So yeah, next time we will move on to something deeper, but nevertheless, here is an episode of a little hint on how to decide which planet is dominant in your horoscope by your name, and if a planet is in a good dignity. Side point, I think the situations where people end up changing their first name a lot, not the last name after marriage, mind you, because that's more numerology. This is the first birth name. So let's say that you're Mary Smith and you marry and you're Mary James instead of Mary Smith. That's not going to change that, right? You're still Mary. So people who really hate their first names and they go legally go to change their name to the government, right? The first name, not because of a relationship. This is someone who's probably going to have a problem here because they were named by their parents by a planet that is in a poor dignity, and they feel like their life is suffering and they hate it. And I actually have a friend like that. Her parents named her with a first name that starts with an F, and that is ruled by Saturn, if you remember. And she has Saturn debilitated in Aries, in a very difficult stellium with a suffering moon and south node. So her parents giving her this ancestral name in a way is part of what she feels like to be the curse of the stellium. She was always saying to me, I want to change my name. I want to go to the government and I want to change my name. And, looking at this and looking at her chart, I understand why. And the pseudo that she adopted for herself online and for her work starts with an E, which rules her sun, which is, in Virgo, so it's in moderate dignity, but it's in the 11th house and it's unafflicted. So basically, she naturally went from her Saturn to her sun in her preference, And I think that when it comes to legal change, the karma will, maybe hold her a little bit. But in the future, if she wanted to do it, I'm sure she could, if she wanted to legally verify that name. And it's very interesting how she moved from a very afflicted stellium to, a well-functioning, unafflicted sun. And yeah, these are the kind of situations when people really hate their name. They feel bad about their name when, again, the planet that they receive is in affliction. Now, you might think that some planets are benefic. So let's say if you have Moon, Venus, and Jupiter ruling you, or Mercury. And if you listen to any of those comments I just made, you will know which letter is which, because I just gave you a breakdown. But if those planets are in a bad condition, in a bad situation, you will also feel bad about them. So let's say that your Moon is like in Scorpio, where it's suffering, in the 12th house, bad position, or in an 8th house, or in the 6th house. It's suffering, right? Or it's in a difficult stellium. You have Moon hemmed with Saturn and one of the nodes, just like this friend over there that wanted to change her name. If something there is afflicted, or it's in a bad sign, or in a bad house, in a bad dignity, even if it's a benefic, you will still want to change your name, or they might actually improve your life. Parents, you might like to think that that they know what they're doing, but they're only human, right? And sometimes the name is just part of our karma, like with that friend that I told you about, that she really has that difficult Saturn stellium that makes her hate her name, but it's an ancestral name that comes from her ancestors. So in a way, it really was part of her karma to be born with that name that she dislikes. And once she's old enough, the karma is burned off, she will be able to, change the name to whatever she wants, which, the thing she already picked for her online pseudo is probably a good idea, ruling an unafflicted sun. So my piece of advice is, do not pick a name that is linked with an obvious benefic. Pick a name, if you want to change it from something you hate, pick a name of a planet that's in a good condition. Because you can pick a name ruled by Saturn, and Saturn can be in excellent dignity, and that can work for you. For example, my Saturn is in Aquarius. It's exalted, it's very happy, or is it more Trikona, whatever. My Saturn is in Aquarius, so it's very happy in Aquarius, right? And it's also in the cardinal 4th house. And I have had pseudo starting with an M on the internet since I was age 10, because M is ruled by Saturn. Like, I'm not giving you my secret alliances here, but before I started making spirituality real, I And or before I would use my other pseudo where I would just call myself Myrti, because Myrti is like a French translation of the Polish name my family gave me. And there are actually people called Myrti in France and Canada. It's an actual name, so it's kind of like give myself a legit name in a non-legit way. And then within making spirituality real, I have had these names for an online presence all the time, and with Saturn and Aquarius that works because Aquarius is a sign of networking and social media. So picking a pseudo that either starts with a J ruled by Venus, which for me is good for spirituality, or with an M that's ruled by an exalted Saturn, that works for me, And before I had Myrti and before I had Myrti Spirituality, I had other, like I said, nicknames that also all started with an M, which again, I'm not telling you because they're a secret. Yeah, and I've had that my whole life. I instinctively picked a nickname that marks my world-functioning strong Saturn as one of the best planets in my chart, right? For instance, I never picked a nickname that was linked to my Jupiter in any way because my Jupiter is in the 12th house where it's suffering, and it's in Libra, which is a sign of the enemy. So if I had a pen name, I should not pick something linked to Jupiter because it's not my most auspicious planet, right? So again, look at your chart, look at the aspects that the planet has, look at the most unafflicted by house, sign, or aspect planet, and pick that if you're already changing something. Anyway, this has been long enough and unexpectedly, not what I thought I would do, but what I think is nevertheless really beneficial and productive to those of you who may want to change your name. So thank you so much for listening, and stay tuned in for the next episode. Bye-bye.